Are injuries normal? And when do you get an injury and how should you deal with it? Hello, my name is Aaron Pilsen. I'm an international concert pianist, and today I would like to talk about some taboo topic, musicians' injuries, and how to deal with them. Because, let's be honest, every musician has injuries during their lifetime, and also very well-known musicians, I don't want to drop any names here, has to deal with injuries at one or another point in their career. So it's very important to know how to deal with it. Especially if you're a non-professional pianist, it's important that you know on how to avoid it, and especially on how to deal with it if you have any injuries. Just to tell you, I'm not a doctor, so I cannot give you any medical advice. What I can do here is that I can offer you my personal experience, and because I've always overcome injuries pretty quickly and easily. So what my strategies were at that point, so that you can also learn from that in this video. Let's get started. First of all, I want to uncover why it's such a big taboo topic, even for well-known musicians. We always want to appear that we are really strong, that we have everything in control, and that we are godlike creatures who don't have any kind of problems. But that's simply not realistic. We have to deal with our human bodies. And especially if we are under a lot of pressure and stress. So if we think that we have to learn something a specific amount of time, or we are stressed because some kind of exam or concerts, then we often have that additional pressure that will lead us to practicing not very consciously, doing more that we are capable of doing, not listening to our bodies, and that will often result in having injuries. And especially if we then continue doing that, you risk getting some chronic problems. And that's really a nightmare for musicians. So just to cover quickly, as I've said, I'm not a doctor, but I know a few things that you can have. For example, tendonitis. That's when the tendons or the thing around the tendons get inflamed, and then you have problems when you move and pain. You can have carpal tunnel syndrome or focal dystonia as a result of that if it gets really, really a long-term problem. And it's assumed that Robert Schumann had a focal dystonia. I've once been participating in a study about this, and it's a neurological problem where you cannot control what your fingers do, so they will involuntarily curl themselves and you cannot use them. And I know even pianists, very famous pianists who have this, and they can still play, but of course it's always better to be healthy, and there have been many cases of this. So please be careful when you practice. Schumann actually built a machine for him to hold his finger. It was on a sling, and he had to press down the fingers with weight, and you have to be very careful there. Don't do any games. Better learn how to develop a strong technique with your natural abilities, and that will help you to move even further, because he had to stop his pianistic career. He wanted to become a piano virtuoso at some point in his life. He was studying with Wieck, the father of Clara Schumann, Clara Wieck, and he wanted to become a virtuoso after he had seen Paganini play the violin. But then he destroyed his hands, he had severe pain, he had to stop playing. He ended up as a composer, not so bad for us either, but for him, of course, it was not a funny story, and he had to suffer a lot to go through this period in his life. So please be careful when you practice. That's my first advice. Be careful and listen to your body. So please, as soon as you feel that you get some pain, reduce the number of practicing hours. You don't have to stop completely. I will get to that in a second, but you should also look for medical advice. There are especially good doctors for musicians. For example, in Hanover, we've been working closely with Dr. Eckhard Altmüller, whose book I have here as well, actually. It's called From Neanderthal in die Philharmonie, from the Neander Valley to the Philharmonie, because he has been doing a lot of research on how music shapes the human brain. And of course also is a specialist on the problems of musicians, has treated many very famous musicians. They came from all over the world to see him. But there are also very good clinics. I will get there in a second, talking about my problems. I've been to a musician's doctor in Berlin, for example, and I'm sure you can find specialists in your area. So especially if the problem is related to your playing, it's best to see a doctor who has experience with that, because they might not only help you to treat the problem fitted to you as a musician, but also to give you some advice on how to practice better at this very stage, but also in the future, and how to avoid these problems. And that is very important, because it often goes in hand with wrong practicing techniques, not always, but it can be the case. And then you should also change something with your habits in order to prevent these problems in the future. And also, of course, to heal completely. So what they will often tell you is that you need a good strategy for your practicing. You need to do some warm-up. It's actually, we are sports people on this instrument or on any other instrument. When you do it at a very high level, it's like extreme sport, just in a certain area. So which part of your body is involved in playing an instrument? It's of course the fingers, hands, arms, forearms, shoulders, back. Mostly that part, of course, also your feet if you have to press the pedal, but everything is kind of involved. And especially this part of the body with your hands and arms is under a lot of work, about a constant work. And you have to learn on how to use it in the best way between tension and release. So when to tense the muscles, when to release them, so that you are not under constant pressure, and that it will help you also to avoid these problems. So you need a good strategy for your practicing. You need the right exercises that emphasize that emphasize, when do I need to use my muscles, when should I release them, when should I relax, because it's both, right? It's not being relaxed all the time. That's wrong, but it's also not like being super tense all the time. So you need to know exactly when to use your muscle in the best possible way. And what a musician instructor will often tell you is that you need to warm up also, like a sports person, and cool down after your practice with some specific exercises. And that's very important, to warm up the muscles before you use them, to cool down after your practice, to have a steady routine for that part. So not just the exercises themselves, that they fit your body and your playing, but also the warm up and the cool down. And let me say one thing, there are many professors out there, many artists that claim that there is one perfect technique for playing. And that's simply not true, because our bodies are very different. So it's kind of a marketing strategy to just say that your technique is the best or this or that. But you need a very individual approach for bodies. Of course, there are some parameters that you need to follow if you really want to reach the highest possible level on your instrument. But there are many very individual factors that you need to consider if you want to master your instrument. And everybody is a little different. You cannot say that you should play only with your fingers or only with your weight or this or that. That's simply not true. And everybody that gives you this, overall solutions is simply lying. So please be careful, right? And I've actually seen that some kind of technique worked well for one person, but another person had severe problems, injuries, and long-term chronic diseases with that. So you really have to be careful and listen to your body and what works for you, what doesn't. And if you feel that you get problems, maybe change the teacher if they insist that you play with a certain kind of technique. And learn how to use the body in the best possible way. Now, even if you get problems, you might have had the best possible technique for you, or you might have made mistakes within your practice. That doesn't mean that you should stop completely, because our body still likes movement. And for example, those kind of spines in the beginning I've shown you, or cooling with ice, that are solutions that can work in specific situations, but not for everyone. So again, listen to your body and what is good for you. But even if you have a problems, our joints and muscles usually, again, don't take this as medical advice, but usually like some kind of movement. So you should not stop completely. Practice a bit slower than usual, but still keep a good and firm touch. Take a lot of breaks. That's very important. Not just do we learn better with breaks, but it's also better for our body. So I would say like something like 45 minutes playing, 15 minutes break is very important. Not just for your progress, but also for your physical well-being. And you need to have the right approach. You need to make sure that you use your body in the best possible way. And you need to make sure that you have the right warm-up, cool-down routines and the right practicing strategies. Let's get into my own personal situation a little bit. I've had a few problems, especially in the left arm here with some tendon, but it was just very brief usually. It got away within like 1 week. Once I had to cancel a concert because of this, but it has been the worst thing that happened to me. I knew very well from my teachers and also the doctors I have worked with what to do in these situations. So I usually healed very, very quickly, and I'm very happy about that. I had some arnica gel which I put on my hands for sleeping, and yeah, just took things a bit easier. What you can do as well to minimize the force you have on your hands is to do a lot of mental practice. I will do another video on mental practicing because it's very important, and it's actually equal practice. It is not even worse. It's not like you waste your time, but it is very important that you also do mental practice, especially if you have had already some problems, that you use that opportunity. And right now, you know, I have some inflammation in my joint here. We don't even know if it's from a lot of playing. I've been playing a lot through the last months, or it's a sports injury from the gym, for example. It could be both. Anyways, it took some time. Then I went to see a doctor, and he gave me some cortisone injection, some anti-inflammatory medicine with little painkillers. It was not even so bad, but it takes some time. So again, now I take it easier with the piano. I do a lot of mental practice. It's almost gone now. So that's why I thought I would record this video for you now, so that you see that I also have problems, but I have learned to manage them well, and yeah, mostly avoid it, because I usually am really without any problems. And if they occur, to actually solve it quickly, so that I can have fun with my piano in the long term, and also realize and play all the concerts and don't have to cancel them. So yeah, if you also want to learn on how to perfect your piano technique so that you avoid getting injuries. I mean, I've been playing for now, I don't know, 23 years, and I have had problems for like maybe 3 weeks in total. So if you also want to learn on how to be free of injuries, and if you get little injuries like this, on how to deal with it correctly so that you don't get any further problems. Of course, I cannot give you medical advice, I can give you practicing advice. Then please sign up for a free strategy session where we'll analyze your situation, where we analyze where you are at the moment, where you want to go, if you've had injuries, if you have them right now, and we work out a perfect plan for you, for your practice, so that you can first avoid them, but also deal with them correctly if you have any injuries or playing related diseases. So all you have to do is you have to click the link below. It's in the description box. It's aaronpilson.com/academy, and fill out the form. There are a few questions asking about your playing, where you are right now, where you want to go, what your goals are, about your overall situation, and then either I or my assistant will call you to find out in a short call if it fits. If that is the case, then we will do the session for 1 hour or 1.5 hours. So really take the time to really look into this with you together. We work out a plan together, and then we can see if we want to continue from there or we just leave it. It's up to you. So please sign up now, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again in the next video.